The world was quiet when it happened. People were sleeping, working, watching TV, laughing, or walking their dogs. Somewhere a child looked up at the sky to point at the full moon, only to find nothing. At first, no one believed it. People assumed it was clouds, pollution, or some kind of eclipse. But there were no clouds, no warnings, no science to explain what they were seeing or not seeing. The moon was simply gone. All over the world, panic began. Videos flooded the internet. Photos of the night sky with a black hole where the moon should be. Some people thought it was a joke. Others cried out in fear. In just a few hours, the tides began to shift. Ocean levels rose in places they shouldn't. Beaches disappeared. Fishermen sent out messages saying the sea was acting angry. Whirlpools formed near coastal towns. Boats vanished. Animals felt it first. Birds flew in circles, confused. Dogs barked nonstop. Cats hid under furniture. In the forest, wolves howled for hours. Even deep in the jungles, monkeys screamed at the sky. Lena was a young astronomer, working the night shift at a small observatory in New Zealand. She had been staring at the sky her whole life. She knew the patterns of the stars better than the streets of her own town. That night, she had just finished logging some meteor data when she noticed it, an emptiness where the moon should have been. She adjusted the telescope again. Nothing. Her hands trembled. She checked the system. It was working fine. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. Still nothing. She tried to call her supervisor, but the lines were busy. She messaged other astronomers in a group chat. One replied, "Same here. It's gone." She opened a live feed from other observatories across the world. One by one, the same message. The moon was not there. No debris, no fragments, no dust trail, just a silent, empty spot. Then something even stranger happened. Gravity began to feel wrong. People started complaining of headaches, dizziness. Some dropped to the floor as if pulled by invisible strings. In some areas, objects rolled uphill. In others, cars stopped working as if the earth had shifted slightly beneath them. Air traffic was grounded. Satellites flickered. GPS signals failed. The world was becoming unstable. And Lena felt it deep in her bones. Something unnatural had happened. She checked the space data again. Her screen showed something she didn't expect. In the place of the moon, there was a dark sphere. It wasn't black in color. It was black in feeling. A spot where no light escaped, like space itself had been torn. She zoomed in. The shape was almost perfect, but it pulsed slightly like it was breathing. She sat back in her chair. "This is not a natural object," she whispered. The black sphere didn't move like a normal celestial body. It hovered exactly in place, like it had always been there, watching. Back on Earth, chaos spread. News channels couldn't keep up. Religious leaders claimed the end had come. Scientists gave nervous updates, admitting they didn't know what was going on. Some people prayed. Others rioted. But the worst part hadn't started yet. At 4:44 a.m. local time, Lena's observatory screen blinked. Static replaced her monitor for a moment. Then it came back, but different. Her radio equipment turned on by itself. A low hum filled the room, deep and slow, like something alive. Lena stared at the speakers. The hum became louder, forming a pattern, pulses like a code. She recorded it, then played it back. The sound was rhythmic. For beats, pause. For beats again and again. A steady pulse. Like a heart. Was it a signal? She didn't believe in aliens. Not really. She believed in data. In math. But this wasn't math. It was a message. She uploaded the file and sent it to other observatories. A friend from Chile replied within minutes, getting same signal. Same time. It's global. At the same moment, something strange happened all over Earth. Compasses began to spin. Birds lost direction. The northern lights appeared far south, visible even over deserts. People looked up and saw strange blue-green lights in the sky. It was beautiful and terrifying. Earth's magnetic field was flickering. Lena's power went out. Emergency lights kicked in. Her computer showed a single line of code repeating over and over. Source unknown. Distortion detected. She ran outside. The sky above was full of stars. But there was no moon, only that pulsing black spot, hovering like a wound in the universe. And then the signal changed. It stopped for 10 seconds, then returned clearer. This time, Lena could hear it. Not just beats, not just pulses, words, not human, not English, but not random either. Her ears filled with whispers that made her feel cold inside, like something was speaking inside her mind. She dropped to her knees. All around the world, others heard the same thing. People fell unconscious. Some bled from their noses. Children screamed in their sleep. Devices recorded nothing, yet everyone felt it. The black shape was no longer just sitting in space. It was communicating. Lena looked up with tears in her eyes. It wasn't just the moon that was gone. Something had taken its place. Something alive. Something watching. And Earth had just received its first message. It didn't sound like a greeting. It sounded like a warning. Lena sat alone in the dark observatory, lit only by red emergency lights and the glow of her laptop. The signal was still coming from the sky where the moon had vanished. It pulsed like a slow, steady heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. At first, it seemed like noise, static, random space interference. But Lena was patient. She had spent her life studying patterns in the stars. And this wasn't random. She ran the audio through a basic sound program. She isolated the pulses, counted the time between them. For beats, a pause. For beats again. The same pattern she had heard during the magnetic storm. She knew it wasn't natural. It was too perfect, too intentional. She checked online forums for other astronomers. Most were silent now. A few were talking in codes, clearly scared. One message stood out. It read, "We're being told to stop." Governments were moving fast. News reports now call the moon's disappearance a rare cosmic illusion. Scientists on TV were saying there's no cause for concern. But Lena knew they were lying, and she wasn't the only one. A private group of researchers from South Africa sent her a file. They had also captured the signal. They had compared it to the sound of a human heart, and it was almost the same, not just in rhythm, but in texture, like the sound came from something alive. Lena's heart pounded as she listened again. Boom, boom, boom. She started a live stream. Her hands shook as she typed the title. The moon didn't vanish. It spoke first. She showed the signal data, the pulse patterns, and the sound. Thousands of people joined the stream within minutes. Some laughed. Some called her crazy. But others listened closely. Then Lena did something bold. She reversed the signal. The sound changed. It became clearer, like breathing, like someone trying to speak through heavy fog. She played it again and again. The chat exploded with comments. People said they heard words, whispers. One person typed, "It's saying help me." Another said, "I heard my name." Lena couldn't explain it, but she heard something too. A voice not outside her, but inside. It felt like a memory, but it wasn't hers. The live stream went viral. News channels tried to block it, but people were already downloading and sharing it everywhere. Then something terrifying happened. At exactly midnight, in every time zone, the signal stopped. For 10 full minutes, there was silence. No pulse. No heartbeat. Just silence in space. People waited. Some cried. Others prayed. Then the signal came back. But it was different. Lena jumped from her chair as the speakers screamed with noise. It wasn't static. It wasn't beats. It was voices. Screaming. Hundreds of human voices, layered over each other, shouting in pain, terror, confusion. Some called out names. Some begged for help. One kept repeating, "Don't look, don't look, don't look." The sound lasted 30 seconds. Then it stopped. The observatory felt cold, like all the heat had been pulled out of the room. Lena sat frozen. The data on her screen updated. The signal now showed a new pattern. It wasn't a pulse anymore. It was a countdown. Governments shut down communication lines. Lena's live stream was blocked in most countries, but people had already heard it. They were afraid. Some believed it was a warning. Others said it was a trick. Some thought it was a voice of souls trapped in space. But Lena thought different. She believed those screams came from people. Real people. Not from Earth, but from somewhere else. Maybe they had crossed into that dark space. Maybe they had found what was hiding behind the moon. And maybe they wanted to warn the rest of humanity. She contacted a former professor, Dr. Calum, who had worked with deep space signals. He answered quickly. He looked pale and tired. She asked him if he had heard it. He nodded slowly. Yes, he said. We received it too, but we were told not to analyze it. Why? Lena asked. Because we already did, 5 years ago. Lena's eyes widened. Dr. Calum explained that the signal had appeared before, briefly, for a few seconds, during a lunar mission years ago. They thought it was just feedback from space. But when they reversed the sound, just like Lena had done, they also heard the voices. Back then, they buried the data. They thought the mission had interfered with something unknown, something hidden near or inside the moon. Now, with the moon gone, that something was free. Lena asked him if there was any way to understand the new countdown signal. He shook his head. Not yet, but the pattern ends in 3 days. She felt a deep chill in her chest. 3 days until what? She couldn't sleep that night. Neither could most of the world. People kept playing the voice clip over and over, trying to hear meaning in the chaos. Some claimed they heard relatives who had died. Others said it wasn't human at all. Lena noticed something even stranger. The signal wasn't just coming from space anymore. It had started coming from the ground. Seismographs detected strange vibrations from deep under Earth's crust, like the signal was now inside the planet. It wasn't loud, but it was growing, day by day. The next morning, Lena's face was all over the news. Some called her a liar. Others called her the truth teller. Her video had been saved by millions. But governments stayed quiet. They stopped answering questions. Satellites were repositioned. Airspace was locked down over major observatories. Something was being hidden. Lena refused to stop. She uploaded the raw audio files for anyone to analyze. She worked with hackers to protect the files. She met with underground scientists who believed the moon hadn't vanished at all, but had transformed. They believed it had been something alive, something that had played dead for thousands of years, something that had fed on human belief, cycles, rituals, and time. Now it had awakened, and it had sent a message, not to say hello, but to claim something. 3 days, and the signal kept growing louder. The wind blew harder than ever before. Trees bent like thin sticks, and the air carried a deep, sharp cold that pierced through skin and bone. It was only the 3rd day since the moon vanished, and Earth was already falling apart. Lena stood on a frozen rooftop in what used to be a busy city. Now silence ruled. The sky was thick with clouds, but not the normal kind. These clouds were heavy, dark blue, and unmoving. The sun barely shone through them. It was like something was pressing down on the sky. The temperature had dropped by 15 degrees in just 2 days. Snow fell where it never snowed before. Oceans surged, then calmed strangely, like they had lost their rhythm. Without the moon's pull, Earth felt broken. But it wasn't just the cold. It was the way the cold moved. Lena watched a layer of frost spread across a wall. Not slowly, but like it was crawling, growing, alive. People around the world were scared. Some were freezing in their homes. Others left cities, thinking the countryside would be safer. But the cold followed them everywhere. Worse, cracks had started to appear in the earth. Deep, wide splits in the ground were opening, especially near old fault lines. But they didn't act like normal earthquakes. They didn't shake the earth. They opened slowly, like something beneath was pushing upward. And from inside those cracks came steam. Not hot, but freezing cold, like the breath of some hidden giant. Government stopped talking. The news was silent. Lena knew why. She had been contacted by a secret group. They were scientists and engineers, some ex-military, some hackers, others from research stations that had gone quiet. They called themselves the Threshold Group. Their message to her was short. You were right. We need your help. Come now. Lena didn't ask many questions. She packed her things and made her way to a hidden base deep in the mountains. The world outside was turning dark. People fought over food. Planes were grounded. Satellites stopped sending clear images of space. But the Threshold group had their own tools. Inside the base, it was quiet and cold, but filled with energy. Computers hummed. People worked nonstop. The leader, a man named Dr. Gray, welcomed Lena like an old friend. His eyes were tired and his voice was low. We've been tracking something, he said, and it's getting closer. Lena followed him into a large control room. On a giant screen, she saw a strange shape moving in space. It wasn't a spaceship or a rock. It was irregular, alive. It moved slowly, almost like a jellyfish in water, but far more massive. It shimmered faintly, like it reflected light that didn't exist. This is where the moon was. Dr. Gray said, we launched a probe after it vanished. We finally got back video footage. Lena stared at the screen as the video played. At first, it was just space, stars, the emptiness where the moon should have been. But then the camera caught something, movement in the dark. The shape appeared, massive and shifting. It wasn't made of metal. It wasn't made of rock. It looked like it was made of living shadow. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the strange heartbeat signal they had heard days ago. The camera zoomed in. There were patterns on its surface. Lines, spirals, symbols that hurt to look at. The probe's data showed its size, bigger than the moon. Much bigger. The room went silent. Then, something in the video moved quickly. The creature, or whatever it was, turned. Slowly, its surface changed. A crack appeared across it, like an eyelid opening. An eye, huge, dark, watching. The video cut off. Lena felt her knees go weak. She had never believed in monsters. Not really. But whatever that thing was, it wasn't just a creature. It was aware. It's replacing the moon, she whispered. Dr. Gray nodded. We think so, and it's not the first time. Lena looked at him, confused. We found ancient records, stories, cultures across the world that spoke of a time when the moon disappeared. For a day, sometimes two. They called it the sleeping sky. Most thought they were myths, but we ran the dates. Every time it happened, disasters followed. Floods, he continued. Fires, ice, and then silence. Total silence in the records. Civilizations disappeared. Lena's mind raced. Was this thing in space a kind of predator? One that fed not on flesh, but on worlds? Outside, the temperature kept dropping. The cracks in the ground spread wider. The sky grew darker every hour. Some cities had no sun at all anymore. Plants were dying. Power grids were failing. And the object in space, it was moving faster now. They received another signal. This time, no screaming. Just a word. One word, repeated over and over again in hundreds of languages. Hunger. Lena sat in her small room later that night, replaying the video from the probe. She froze the frame on the eye. Something about it stayed with her. Not just fear, but recognition. She felt like it had seen her, like it knew her. The cold pressed harder against the walls of the base. Ice formed inside the windows. People wrapped in layers of clothing walked quietly, as if speaking too loud would wake something up. Lena joined the next mission briefing. A new plan had formed. They would launch another probe, this time carrying something else. A device built to scan the creature more deeply, to understand its nature. Biological? Mechanical? Something in between? The probe would be launched from the base within hours. But Lena felt uneasy. Every time they tried to reach out to the thing, it responded, not with kindness, not with answers, only with silence or screams. Outside, the sky turned nearly black. Stars were disappearing. People around the world looked up and saw nothing but endless shadow. The moon hadn't just vanished. Something had taken its place. And now it was watching. The cold was no longer just outside. It had crept into the walls of the underground base, into the wires, into people's bones. The heaters still worked, but they couldn't fight the chill in the air. It wasn't just temperature. It felt like something was watching, waiting. Lena sat in the research chamber, her eyes scanning symbols on an ancient tablet. The stone was cracked and worn, but the carving was clear, a circle in the sky with eyes. Not just one eye, many, watching from all sides. This tablet came from a temple in South America, sent by a field team that had been working quietly, far from the public eye. At first, Lena thought it was just another moon carving, but then she noticed a strange detail. The moon wasn't glowing. It was blinking. Dr. Gray stepped into the room, rubbing his tired face. Any progress? Lena nodded slowly. Too much, and not enough. She showed him the tablet. This is not the only one. I checked others from ancient Egypt, India, Mesopotamia. They all describe a moon as more than a light in the sky. They called it guardian, a protector, and sometimes a jailer. Gray frowned. A jailer? She pointed at one word repeated in several carvings. This word appears often. It means a lock or the watcher. They believed the moon wasn't just orbiting Earth. It was placed there, watching something, or guarding us from something. Gray fell silent. Around them, the base's lights flickered. That had been happening more and more. Power was unstable. And outside, madness was spreading. Reports came in daily, people acting strange. Some stared at the sky for hours, unmoving. Others screamed until their throats bled. Some attacked their families. No pattern, no reason, but all of them had looked up. Something about the sky had changed. The new object where the moon once was, Lena refused to call it moon anymore, was shifting shape. Every satellite that tried to scan it failed after a few seconds. The images came back blurry, like the thing didn't want to be seen clearly. But then came the drone footage. A high-speed, high-altitude drone had been sent up that morning. It managed to capture 10 seconds of clean video before losing signal. In that short clip, the object shifted. Its round shape stretched and moved, like something under its surface was pushing out. Then it turned. It didn't rotate like a planet or a moon. It turned, as if it had a front, as if it had a face. And then they saw it. An eye, not like the last one. This one was wider, full of color, depth, intelligence. It opened slowly and looked directly at Earth. That was the moment it started. Across the world, people fell to their knees, screaming, laughing, crying. Some collapsed. Others clawed at their own eyes. The connection was clear. Seeing the eye changed people. Lena reviewed footage from cities hit the hardest. One video showed a teacher in a classroom. She paused, looked out the window, and began to whisper something no one could understand. Then she calmly walked into the wall, over and over, until she fell. Another video showed a crowd in Times Square, staring up. Some ran, some danced, some began repeating a strange phrase in unison. The moon was alive. It never slept. Lena's hands shook as she turned off the videos. She walked through the base, past soldiers and scientists, all working in silence. Everyone had seen the eye. Even in here, deep underground, a monitor had shown it for a few seconds. Some workers hadn't spoken since. In the library room, she opened an old book, one of the first written records from an ancient Chinese monk. The passage translated loosely as, "When the sky shows its true face, madness will be its gift. The silver eye sleeps to protect the dream. If the eye awakens, the dream ends." The dream. That word kept coming up. Was Earth a dream, or were they dreaming now? Gray entered again, his voice low. "We have new scans." He led Lena to the control room. On the screen, they saw a new shape forming around the object. It was no longer round. It had grown limbs, or something like limbs. Long, slow-moving tendrils of shadow. Not physical, not light. Somewhere between both. It looked like a creature. A massive, living thing, floating in space, wrapped in silence. "It's alive," Lena whispered. The moon wasn't just watching. It was watching this. Gray nodded. "And we removed it." There was no doubt anymore. The moon had been more than rock. It had been placed there, a watcher, a lock, something that kept the sky silent. And now that it was gone, the thing had come. Lena turned to the room. We need to find out what it wants. Another voice cut in, a young scientist who had been quiet since the beginning. What if it doesn't want anything? What if it's just awake now? No one answered. The power flickered again. The base groaned as if pressure outside was building. The cold pressed in harder. Some walls formed thin sheets of ice. Then came the voice, not from the speakers, not from the machines, from the walls themselves. It was low, deep, and full of echoes, like 100 voices speaking together. You were not meant to look. Everyone froze. You broke the seal. Lena stepped back. It's speaking to us. Gray's eyes widened. No, not to us. To everyone. And they saw it happen. Broadcast worldwide cut to black. Then the same message appeared on every screen, in every language. A face. No, not a face. A shape. A shifting, flickering mass that resembled a human face, but changed constantly. Eyes too large. Mouth too wide. And the message. This was your cage. You lived in the shadow of the eye. Now you were seen. Across the world, people screamed again. Some ran. Some begged. Others stood still, as if accepting something old and known. The creature in the sky pulsed. The temperature dropped again. Ice storms swallowed cities. The earth shook, not from below, but from the sky pressing down. And then silence. Lena stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The moon had never been just a moon. It had been alive. And now, something far older, far larger, had taken its place. The room was dim, the only light coming from the cold blue glow of monitors. Lena sat in front of the main screen, her eyes bloodshot, her fingers trembling over the keyboard. Her mind raced faster than the machines could process. It had started as a signal, a pulsing, alien rhythm beam from the dark sky, where the moon used to be. But now it was more than that. Now it was a message. The lab around her was silent. Everyone had stopped talking hours ago, after the first images began to decode. At first, they didn't make sense, just swirling patterns, spirals, and sharp curves. But Lena had seen enough DNA models in her life to recognize it. The thing in the sky wasn't just watching humanity. It knew everything about humanity, down to the code. It was showing them their own DNA. And it wasn't just showing it. It was correcting it. She called in Dr. Gray. He stared at the screen, unmoving. This can't be right. Lena nodded slowly. It is. Look at this sequence. This isn't natural. See how this part was spliced? Inserted. That's not evolution. That's engineering. Gray leaned closer, hands on his knees. You're saying we were modified? Not just modified, Lena whispered. Built. The screen flashed again. Another image loaded. This one wasn't DNA. It was a fetus. Human. And next to it, the moon. But not the moon as they knew it. This version had soft tendrils extending toward Earth. Lines of light connecting it to different points on the planet. Mountains, oceans, cities. And inside those lights, the same DNA patterns. Lena couldn't breathe. We weren't born under the moon. We were grown under it. Like crops. Like an experiment. Gray shook his head, trying to deny it. But his eyes couldn't look away from the truth. More images came through. Human faces. Not random people. Important ones. Leaders. Scientists. Inventors. And next to each face, more genetic symbols. The creature had been tracking every major human development for thousands of years, as if watching its creation grow. And the final image on the screen, Earth, a timer, counting down, 10 hours. Gray spoke first. What's the timer for? Lena turned slowly. I think it's the end of the experiment. The power flickered. Static hissed through the speakers. Then a voice, not like the others they had heard before. This one was clear, calm, and terrifying. Harvest time. It echoed across every monitor, every phone, every satellite, around the world. Screens went black and then lit up with a single phrase. You were never alone. Panic spread instantly. Cities collapsed into chaos. Some people ran to churches. Others locked themselves inside. Some stood outside, staring at the shifting shape in the sky, whispering prayers to something far older than God. Governments tried to hide it at first, but it was too late. The signals couldn't be stopped. The images had burned into the networks. Even disconnected devices showed the countdown. Lena's team dug deeper into the data, trying to make sense of it. One scientist pulled up old geological records. The moon didn't just appear millions of years ago. It's too perfect. Its orbit, its size. It stabilizes Earth, controls tides, controls us. Another researcher found records from early DNA studies. There were anomalies, genetic jumps that shouldn't have happened. But now we know why. We were being pushed, steered. And then came the worst part. Lena compared human DNA to the sequence the creature sent. She found a match, not just a similarity, an exact match. The creature had the same genetic base as humans, only it was older, far older. She stared at the data, mouth dry. We're not just an experiment. We're its children. Gray backed away from the screen. No, that's not possible. But it was. The evidence was there. The creature had planted the seeds of humanity, guided its evolution, protected it with the moon. And now that the moon was gone, it had returned to collect. The earth was shaking, not from quakes, but from the sky. A massive shadow began to descend from orbit. Clouds parted, and people across the world saw it. A shape larger than any mountain. Not a ship, not a monster. Something in between. A living being that didn't need wings or engines. It moved like it was falling, but controlled like it was swimming through space itself. Tendrils reached toward Earth, not to destroy, to gather. The countdown reached 7 hours. In the base, Lena and the team debated their next move. Could they stop it? Could they talk to it? The creature sent one final image to their monitors. A garden, Earth, and humans growing from it like flowers. Each person connected to roots, each root leading back to the sky. And in that garden, one word glowed brighter than the others. Yield. Gray slammed his fist into the console. We are not food. We're not test tubes. But no one answered. The creature didn't need to speak anymore. It had already said enough. The final signs appeared in the sky. Lights, spirals, huge symbols made of clouds and light. People began to float. Not many, just a few at first. From parks, rooftops, fields. They rose into the air slowly, peacefully, then vanished. No pain, no sound, just gone. Harvested. Lena felt the pull, too. Not physical, but deep, like a whisper in her DNA. A call to come home. She clutched the table. We have to do something. Gray looked around the room. We tell the world. Let them choose. Fight or surrender. Lena opened the last signal. It was a memory. From the creature. A planet. A garden. Full of creatures like humans. Happy. Growing. Then gone. Harvested. This had happened before. Other planets. Other moons. Same cycle. Grow. Observe. Harvest. Humanity was never the first. And they wouldn't be the last. Lena took one last look at the screen and hit send. She uploaded everything. The DNA data. The images. The voice recordings. The countdown. She sent it to every device on Earth. Let the truth be known. As the clock ticked down to 6 hours, the world changed. Not just physically, emotionally. The fear was no longer about survival. It was about identity. Who were they? What were they? Lena sat back, eyes closed as the sky pulsed one more time, and the creature's voice echoed again. Harvest time. This was never their world. They were just a crop. Lena ran through the ash-covered street, her lungs burning with every breath. Buildings around her were broken, fires eating their way through steel and glass. The sky had changed. It wasn't blue anymore. It was gray, like a bruise spreading across the world. The countdown from the creature in the sky kept ticking down. 5 hours left. She stopped behind an overturned car, trying to catch her breath. Behind her, the others followed. Dr. Gray, a soldier named Malik, and a girl no older than 10 named Asha. They were all that was left from the research base. "They're coming," Malik whispered, checking his rifle. Lena didn't ask who. They all knew. The creatures that looked like humans, but weren't. It started hours ago. Strange signals came from deep underground. Old military bunkers, forgotten caves, and hollowed mountains activated at the same time. Doors opened, and from them came beings that wore human skin, but didn't move like humans. Their eyes were all black. No whites, just endless darkness. They spoke, but not with mouths. You felt their words in your head. Cold, empty, sleepers. That's what people were calling them. And they had been waiting. Lena remembered the first time she saw one. At the base. It had stood perfectly still in the hallway, staring at her. Then it smiled, but it wasn't real. Like the smile was just copied from a memory of what a smile should look like. It whispered one word. Awakened. Then it attacked. Now, cities were falling. Governments were silent. Satellites were dark. And the sleepers were everywhere. "They were here before us," Gray said, sitting beside her. His face was pale, his hands shaking. "They're part of the experiment. Left behind to wait for the harvest." Lena didn't respond. She didn't want to believe it, but it made sense. The creature in the sky had grown humans like a crop. Some of those crops were altered, planted deep, hidden until the right time. Now that the signal had returned, they were rising. Malik pointed to a broken sign in the distance. "The spaceport is that way. If the emergency launch system still works, we might be able to send a warning." Lena nodded. It was a long shot, but it was something. They moved quietly through the ruins of the city. Smoke covered the air. They saw bodies, some torn apart, others lying peacefully, eyes open, staring into nothing. And they saw more sleepers. They didn't chase or run. They just stood, watching, like statues, like they were waiting for orders. "What do they want?" Asha asked, her voice small. Lena looked at her. "I don't think they want anything. I think they're just doing what they were made to do." Asha didn't ask again. As they passed an old shopping center, they heard a sound. A voice. Human. Crying. Malik raised his rifle and signaled them to stop. They crept closer. Inside the broken glass doors, a man sat against the wall. He was injured. Blood covered his leg. But he was alive. They approached carefully. "I'm not one of them," he said quickly. "I swear, I've been hiding." Lena looked at his eyes. They were normal. She relaxed a little. "What happened here?" she asked. "They came from the tunnels. Dozens of them. Some people followed them, like they were hypnotized. Others ran. They didn't make it." Gray knelt beside him. "You said some people followed them?" The man nodded. "Yeah, like they were being called. Some didn't even resist. They just walked into the dark." Lena felt sick. The sleepers weren't just attacking. They were recruiting. "We need to move," Malik said. "Now." They helped the man up and continued toward the spaceport. That's when the screaming started. It came from behind them, dozens of voices, not in pain, in rage. Lena looked back. The sleepers were running now, fast, their arms stretched unnaturally, their legs bent wrong. They moved like insects, not people. "Go!" Malik shouted. They ran, through empty streets, over broken cars, around fallen power lines. The spaceport was just ahead. The building was cracked, but the launch tower was still standing. A miracle. Malik turned and fired behind them. The sound echoed through the street. He hit one of the sleepers. It dropped but didn't bleed, just a black mist leaking from its mouth. They reached the entrance. Lena slammed the keypad. Miraculously, it still had power. The door opened. Inside, they found the emergency control room. Dust covered everything, but the systems were still online. Lena started typing. She accessed the last satellite link. A screen lit up. The creature was still there, closer now, its form shifting slowly in the sky. Its tendrils reached across space, curling around Earth like fingers. Malik sealed the door. Gray helped the injured man sit. "I can send a signal," Lena said. "A final broadcast. If anyone's still out there." She hit the keys. The screen blinked. Then static. Then a face. Not a sleeper. Not one of them. A human. An older woman. Wearing a cracked headset. She looked shocked. "You're alive," she said. Lena almost cried. "Where are you?" "Antarctica. Deep research outpost. We're underground. But we've seen them too. We've lost contact with the world. We're trying to send a warning," Lena said. "There's a creature in the sky. It made us. The moon wasn't just a rock. It was alive." The woman nodded slowly. "We suspected. There were old records. Warnings. The sleepers are part of it. Hidden for generations. Made to survive after the harvest." Lena's voice cracked. "How do we stop it?" The woman looked away for a second. Then back. "You don't." Lena froze. "There's no stopping it. But there's a way to survive." She sent a code. "Coordinates. Come here," she said. "If you make it, we'll tell you what we know. But hurry. The end is close." The screen went black. Lena stood still. They weren't alone. Not everyone had turned. There was hope. Then the door shook. Banging. Malik raised his weapon. "They're here." Gray helped the injured man to his feet. "We need to move again." Lena downloaded the last data and grabbed the drive. The door cracked. Fingers pushed through, but before it could open, a voice came from behind the wall. A survivor. A man. He wore a military coat, eyes wide with fear. He said one sentence that chilled them all. "They were always part of us, but now they've turned." Lena stood in front of the control panel, her fingers trembling as she typed the final commands. The room around her was dim, flickering lights casting shadows on the cracked walls. The air smelled of burnt wires and desperation. She had no idea if what she was about to do would work, but it was the last chance humanity had. Around her, a group of survivors, men and women from different corners of the world, were preparing for the final fight. They had made it to the underground facility, one of the few places still holding out against the chaos above. But even here it wasn't safe. The sleepers were already closing in, their footsteps echoing through the corridors. "They'll be here soon," Malik said, checking his rifle. His face was grim, eyes hollow from days of fighting. He had always been the tough one, but now there was a weariness in him that didn't belong. Lena didn't look up from the control panel. "We have to take the risk. We overload the signal. Cut their control. If we do it right, they'll be blind." Gray, sitting at a nearby desk, was sorting through the last of the supplies. "And if we're wrong?" Lena paused. The weight of his words pressed on her chest. "Then we die." The room went quiet. No one spoke. They all knew what was at stake. The creature in the sky, the one that had been watching them all along, wasn't just an alien being. It was a god, an ancient force that had shaped human evolution, manipulated them, created them, and now it was ready to harvest everything. Lena didn't believe in gods, but she believed in this one, and she knew they were at its mercy. But she also knew something else. The moon wasn't just a guardian or a puppet master. It wasn't invincible. Humanity had always fought back, even when the odds were impossible. And this time would be no different. "We're ready," Malik said, snapping Lena from her thoughts. He gestured to the others, who were armed in position at the entrances, prepared for the oncoming fight. Lena nodded, her hand hovering over the red button that would start the plan. "Once I hit this, there's no turning back. The creatures will know we're here. They'll come for us." Gray glanced at her, his eyes filled with uncertainty. But then he nodded. "Do it." Lena took a deep breath and pressed the button. The sound of the soft filled the room, and the walls seemed to vibrate with the power surging through the facility. The creature's signal, the one that had been controlling the sleepers, would now be overloaded, creating a massive surge of energy that would cut its grip on Earth. The energy would blind the creature, temporarily disconnecting it from its control over the sleepers. It was the only chance they had. Outside, explosions lit up the sky. They were Earth's last defenses, missiles launched from underground bunkers, targeted at the creature. The shock waves rippled through the atmosphere, shaking the ground beneath their feet. It was a desperate move, a last-ditch effort to disrupt the creature's influence. Lena looked up at the monitor. The signal was beginning to falter. The creature's form in the sky shifted, its tendrils twitching in confusion. It didn't understand what was happening. The connection between Earth and the godlike entity was breaking. For the first time, humanity had the upper hand. But it wouldn't last long. "They're coming," Gray said, his voice urgent. He was watching the surveillance feed from the entrance. "We don't have much time." Lena didn't answer. She was focused on the countdown. They had only a few minutes before the creature adapted and fought back. And when it did, all hell would break loose. The ground trembled as explosions erupted in orbit, hitting the creature's form. The sky lit up with flashes of white and blue, the force of the blast rattling the survivors to their core. But the creature didn't fall. It roared in fury, its shape warping, as if it were trying to shake off the attack. The blasts were weakening it, but they weren't enough to destroy it. Lena's heart raced as she watched the final seconds tick down on the timer. The plan was working, but she couldn't afford to relax. The sleepers were on their way, and they would stop at nothing to reach the survivors. They were faster now, more aggressive, moving with the precision of predators. "Malik, Gray, get ready," Lena said, her voice sharp. "We have to hold them off while the signal overload completes. Once the creature is blind, we'll have a chance." Malik nodded, checking his weapon again. Gray was already preparing the explosives they had rigged in the facility's hallways. They would make a last stand, not just to survive, but to buy enough time for the plan to succeed. Lena's eyes locked onto the screen in front of her. The creature's form was shifting again. It had sensed a change, the severing of its control over Earth. The monstrous figure was thrashing, fighting the energy surge. And then it froze. For a moment, everything was still. The creature's massive shape, once so powerful, trembled in the sky. The control it had over the sleepers was slipping away. They stopped moving, their blank eyes fixed on the sky. The air felt thick, like something immense was holding its breath. But that didn't last long. From the shadows, the first of the sleepers appeared. Their twisted, insect-like bodies moved with unnatural speed. They were coming, drawn by the signal, hungry for destruction. Lena grabbed her rifle. "Now!" The battle was chaos. Gunfire echoed through the facility, the sound of bullets striking flesh and bone. The sleepers were relentless, but they were not as invincible as they seemed. Every shot that hit them caused their forms to distort and fade. They weren't fully human. They were something else entirely, something that could be broken, but there were too many of them. Lena's heart pounded in her chest as she fought alongside the others, trying to hold the line. They couldn't let the sleepers breach the control room. If they did, all hope would be lost. And then, just as they thought they couldn't hold on any longer, the final burst of energy from the creature's signal overload hit. The creature screamed, a deep, resonating sound that shook the ground beneath their feet. Its massive form in the sky trembled and then disintegrated, collapsing into a mass of black tendrils. The creatures below stopped. For the first time since the moon had disappeared, the world was silent. Lena lowered her weapon, her breath ragged. The battle was over. For now, in the distance, the last of the sleepers fell to ground, their forms crumbling as a connection to the creature broke completely. It was done. Lena looked up at the empty sky, her mind racing. "If the moon was a god," she whispered, "then today a human killed it." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. The battle wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming their future. Humanity had fought back, and for the first time in history, they had won. Lena didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for sure. They were no longer puppets. They were free,